All right, so can you tell me first of all, Lynn, about how you became involved in the Fusiliers and when that was?
Well, it was about 11 years ago,
Yeah.
and I was made redundant from the local authority. I'd worked for them for 32 years, for Bray Council, and my husband died. So my husband died in 15th of October, and they made me redundant about 3 weeks later. So I was devastated, really, because I'd always worked. I'd worked since I was 15, not for them, but I have always worked, not always full-time, part-time. So I really needed something to occupy me. And I originally started working for the Tourist Information Service, which is at our front desk at the museum. And I worked for them every Sunday because we were open then 7 days a week. And I got, also the museum was open as well, so there was always somebody on the desk from the museum. So I worked for them, and I got talking to Phil, and Phil said, why don't you come and volunteer for us? And that's how I started, really. So I saw Helen, who was then the general manager, and she said, what would you like to do? And I said, well, I'd like to work on the front desk because I like meeting people.
That's fantastic, isn't it? So what's the best things about working at the Fusiliers?
The people.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love the people that work here.
Yeah.
And I love meeting people and being part of something. So that's what it amounts to, really. It's, I mean, I like the work. I've transcribed diaries from the First World War. I've transcribed things for people that have come in and brought memoirs that granddads have written, because I originally have sort of transcribing experience, really.
Is there any one sort of story about an individual Fusilier from the past or whatever that sort of sticks in your mind? Something when you do, is there, do you want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I can't remember his name. I mean, I could if I looked it up. But I was typing a diary from the First World War, and at the beginning of it, I mean, it was a personal account, and it was happening then. I think what happened was, I'm only guessing, but if you were on the front line and right in the firing line, obviously you won't be able to write diaries. But they had rest days, and they'd move back to the trenches that weren't actually in the firing. I think this is what happened, and that's when they would write them. And this guy, I think I got about 3/4 of the way through it, and it just said, I am sat in a trench which is thick with mud, and it's pouring with rain, and shells are firing overhead. And then it just said, what a way to spend my 21st birthday. And it really sticks in my mind that this just young boy was in this horrific situation that thousands of other people were. Yeah. So that's the main one that sticks in my mind, yeah.
All right, so please sort of tell me, what benefits do you see working in the museum then?
For me personally?
Yes, yeah.
First of all, there's a fantastic group of staff to work with. That's not just lip service. I think they're all excellent and really good at their specialisms, and they are specialisms. I mean, I've never had experience in my career before, for example, with a curator of a museum, and so to spend time with Sarah, the curator here, to see what she does in her day-to-day role is really interesting for me, because I do have a military history interest, although not background. I think working with experts in their field has been something that I've really enjoyed doing.
So what type of visitors are attracted to the Fusiliers Museum?
Right, well this is an interesting question, and I would say a good part of my role, first of all, as a part answer to your question, David, is to try and improve our visitor number. So the footfall through the place is something that I'm trying to, in different ways, drive forward. That's a big chunk of what I'm trying to achieve. So that's the first part of your answer. The second part of the answer is that historically, The museum's audience has been predominantly ex-Fusiliers and ex-Fusiliers' families and close friends. And so from my perspective, what I'm trying to do is push out the boundaries just a little bit to widen that audience. Still without, and it's a balancing act, because I'm conscious that I need to do that without losing the focus of the regiment from the museum. So this is still, and always will be, a Fusilier museum. But what I'm trying to engender is a bit of a culture where we just think about how we might have exhibitions that just push the boundaries out just a little bit to attract a wider audience. So if you want me to give me an example, if for instance we had an exhibition here about the Cold War. So the Fusiliers were very involved in Germany during the Cold War period, standing out there on the front line in Germany. So we might market that under our current regime, if you like, as come and see what the Fusilier regiment were doing during the Cold War. But if we spun that and thought about it more widely, the exhibition itself may still be focusing on the Fusiliers, but from a marketing perspective, we might say, come and see how close Britain came to nuclear obliteration during the Cold War.
I have been at the museum for the last 9 years, and I initially came to open the top floor when we got the Heritage Lottery funding to do that. I'd had my first child. My background is in museums and heritage and marketing and comms, and I decided not to go back to my corporate way of life. And the general manager at the time asked me to come here and open the top floor, and I've never left. I've been here for 9 years. Seen various things happen in that time, but as a result of that, I've then now started to work and deliver projects for the regiment. So one of the things that I did was the 50th anniversary in 2018. So we had a whole programme of events around the 50th anniversary of the regiment forming. I'm now working with the regiment on an association project, so it's about how we engage veterans of all ages, and creating a platform, website and apps to enable better communication and support for mental health and wellbeing, and all the support for people that once they leave the regiment. And then I'm also working on the reopening of the Fusilier Museum in Warwick, which is a very similar venue to here, a bit smaller, but they've been closed for 2 years because of COVID and because they came out of the previous venue. So that's just about to reopen at the beginning of December. So I'm doing all the launch and comms for that reopening. So I think I'm very much an adopted Fusilier. Yeah, the motto for the regiment, which everybody uses, is once a Fusilier, always a Fusilier. So if you ask a veteran, that's very much the minute you become a Fusilier, you're in it for life. And that's certainly how I think some of our volunteers feel, some of our staff. Certainly myself, I've never been a Fusilier myself, but I feel like I'm very much part of this community and part of this family.
What do your volunteers get out of being here, would you say? Especially because we sort of focus on people that are sort of 50 plus, so some of your volunteers are in that sort of age group. What do they get out of it?
Yeah, well, I think it's giving them, it gives them something to do. It gets them out of the house. It contributes to their mental health and well-being. We can give them, depending on what their area of expertise or interests are, then we can tailor what they do to best suit their needs and requirements. So we have volunteers that volunteer just purely for the collection. So they like to look at the things that are being donated, cataloguing them, archiving them, and making sure that record for each item that we've got is done properly. Right through to people who clean the silver, people who volunteer on the front desk, people who volunteer for events. We have people who volunteer because they've got a specific interest in military history or research, family research. So we've got a couple of people who volunteer in our archive. So we're keeping people's activities and hobbies, and giving them the opportunity to keep doing those things that they really enjoy, and giving them the opportunity to meet people, and be part of our Fusilier family, of which we're always open for more.